Playbook. Picture this, a workplace dominated by fear, blame, and chaos. Toxic leaders thrive in environments like this. But what makes someone a toxic leader? Let's peel back the layers of manipulation, control, and ego that chip away at teams and organizations. At their core, toxic leaders undermine trust and unity. They wield power not to uplift but to intimidate. Whether it's micromanaging or playing favorites, they create a culture where creativity and growth are stifled. Toxic leaders tend to follow a predictable playbook. Here are some signature traits of these power-hungry individuals. Public humiliation is their weapon of choice. They point fingers and blame others to shield themselves. Employees fear mistakes, not for the error itself, but for the leader's wrath. Toxic leaders thrive on maintaining absolute control, as their sense of power and self-worth is deeply tied to their ability to dominate every aspect of their environment. For them, autonomy among team members is perceived as a direct threat to their authority, as it challenges their need for dominance and undermines their carefully constructed hierarchy. Collaboration, which requires trust, open communication, and shared decision-making, feels like chaos to them because it disrupts their rigid top-down approach to leadership. Instead of fostering an environment of empowerment and mutual respect, they resort to relentless micromanagement, scrutinizing every detail and dictating every action. This behavior not only stifles creativity and innovation, but also demoralizes capable employees who feel undervalued, disempowered, and stripped of their ability to contribute meaningfully. Over time, this approach erodes morale, diminishes productivity, and creates a culture of fear and compliance, where employees are more focused on avoiding criticism than on achieving meaningful outcomes. In this way, toxic leaders prioritize control over growth, ultimately harming both individuals and the organization as a whole. Favoritism is a calculated tool often wielded by toxic leaders to sow division and maintain control. By selectively elevating favorites, individuals who are granted undue privileges, recognition, or opportunities, these leaders create an environment of inequality and imbalance. This deliberate act of favoritism breeds resentment, jealousy, and frustration among peers, as others feel undervalued and overlooked despite their contributions. Over time, this dynamic destabilizes teams from within, as collaboration gives way to competition, and unity is replaced by fragmentation. Trust, the cornerstone of any healthy organization, begins to erode as employees question the fairness and integrity of leadership. Cracks form in the organization's foundation, weakening morale, stifling productivity, and fostering a culture of disengagement. Ultimately, this divisive strategy not only undermines team cohesion, but also jeopardizes the long-term success and sustainability of the organization, leaving it vulnerable to internal conflict and external challenges. A toxic leader doesn't just hurt individual employees, they sabotage entire organizations. Productivity plummets when employees feel undervalued and demoralized. Innovation fades under the weight of blame and fear. Team dynamics inevitably disintegrate when trust, the cornerstone of any successful group, begins to erode. Toxic leaders exacerbate this breakdown by deliberately sowing discord and creating an environment of suspicion and rivalry. Instead of nurturing a culture of collaboration and mutual support, they manipulate team members by pitting them against one another, turning healthy competition into a destructive tool for control. This divisive tactic not only undermines individual relationships, but also weakens the collective morale and productivity of the team. By prioritizing their own agenda over the well-being of the group, toxic leaders transform what could be a cohesive, high-performing unit into a fractured and dysfunctional one. In such an environment, innovation stagnates, communication breaks down, and team members become more focused on self-preservation than on achieving shared goals. Ultimately, the absence of trust and the presence of manipulated competition create a toxic cycle that stifles growth, damages morale, and leaves the team vulnerable to failure. Their relentless pursuit of self-preservation over the team's success results in high turnover, lost morale, and a warped company culture. Left unchecked, toxicity has the potential to destroy even the most promising organizations. Toxic leaders often establish their influence from the foundation, insisting on absolute loyalty from every department, individual, and entity associated with the organization. Their goal is to enforce total conformity, suppressing any form of dissent, discussion, or differing perspectives in reaction to their harmful directives and decisions. Constructive, well-reasoned, and thoughtful feedback stands as the ultimate counterforce to the destructive tendencies of authoritarian, toxic leadership. Leaders who rely on top-down control and intimidation often thrive in environments where dissent is silenced and critical perspectives are dismissed. However, when individuals have the courage to offer civilized, substantive, and evidence-based feedback, it undermines the toxic leader's ability to dominate and manipulate. Such feedback fosters transparency, accountability, and collaboration, values that are fundamentally incompatible with the oppressive nature of toxic leadership. By encouraging open dialogue and challenging harmful behaviors, constructive feedback not only weakens the toxic leader's grip, but also paves the way for healthier, more inclusive, and empowering organizational cultures. In this way, meaningful feedback serves as both a shield and a catalyst for positive change, dismantling the foundations of toxicity and replacing them with trust and mutual respect. Criticism from toxic leaders is rarely, if ever, a two-way conversation. It is a one-sided monologue designed to assert dominance rather than foster growth or understanding. For such leaders, the concept of a genuine exchange of ideas or a constructive dialogue is entirely foreign, as their approach to leadership is rooted in control, intimidation, and the need to maintain an imbalance of power. Toxic leaders view their subordinates not as partners or collaborators, but as tools to be managed, often resorting to reprimands, demeaning comments, and micromanagement to keep employees in line. This behavior reduces individuals to mere extensions of the leader's will, stripping them of autonomy, and treating them more like obedient dogs on a leash than capable, thinking professionals. In such environments, the potential for innovation, creativity, and mutual respect is stifled, as the toxic leader's focus remains fixed on enforcing compliance rather than nurturing growth or encouraging meaningful contributions. This authoritarian dynamic not only erodes morale, but also perpetuates a culture of fear and silence, where open communication and collaboration are systematically discouraged. It's not just about spotting toxic leaders, it's about addressing our own tendencies. Could you unintentionally be fostering fear or discouraging growth? Identifying these patterns early could save your relationships and your team's well-being. Real change demands self-reflection. Leaders must be willing to confront their own darker tendencies and make accountability a priority. Toxicity often begins with small actions that go unchecked. It's time to break the cycle. Organizations must firmly commit to identifying and addressing toxic behaviors at every level. Recognizing the problem is the first step, but action speaks louder than awareness. We challenge you to be a champion for positive change, advocate for accountability, compassion, and growth in your workplace. Join the movement to dismantle toxic leadership for good. Your team deserves better, and so does every organization. Let's lead with courage and integrity. If you found this video helpful, subscribe for more. See you on the next one.